Hey guys, welcome to today's drawing tutorial. Before I get started, I do just want to say I did have surgery literally a couple of days ago, so if my voice sounds weird at all, that's why. But I don't think it sounds that bad, so we're just gonna ignore that fact. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and if you want to see one similar, I'll link it above so that you can just click on it whenever you want. But let's get into drawing Dominic Fike. So something that I've always personally struggled with, and I'm sure a lot of new artists also struggle with, is proportions. I hate freehanding proportions. That is not my favorite part of drawing. I really like the shading in part and just like physically coloring the drawing more than drawing the outline and everything. So something that I found really helps with getting all the proportions right and speeding up the whole process is either projecting what you want to draw onto a wall or using a light pad. I used a light pad in my Stern YOLO triplet video, so if you want to see more about what I'm talking about when it comes to light pads, you can go check that video out, because in this video I actually decided to use a projector that I got for Christmas, and I basically just projected it onto the back of a whiteboard that I have. So this was that process. I put a double-sided piece of sticky tape on the back of a sheet of paper and just projected the drawing that I wanted to draw onto that, so the paper was kept in place so I didn't like mess up any of the proportions at all during this period. Now, after drawing the outlines of like everything that I could see that was projected onto the wall, I have a process where I try to match the colors to the picture as closely as I can, and basically by doing that I use Prismacolor pencils. I just find that they blend really well and are pretty easy to use, which is why I like them. But when it comes to finding the correct color chart that you need, depending on what pencil pack you bought, you can actually look up Prismacolor print chart, and that'll kind of give you something like this, and you can find the specific pencil pack that you have, so then you know that you're like looking at the right one. And basically what you do is in each little bubble there's going to be like numbers underneath it, and basically in the bubble you just color in with the number pencil that it tells you there. So then anytime you're trying to like color match something, what I did is I folded each line of bubbles to kind of make the paper look like an accordion. That way I can kind of fold things up exactly where I need it to be, so I can put it straight up to my iPad or whatever device I'm looking at to try and color match and see which color on that piece of paper looks closest to whatever I'm going to be like needing from the picture. So that's how I color match. But let's get into the actual drawing that I'm doing here. If you look closely at my technique, I know sometimes it can be kind of hard to see just because of how the camera's angled, but these are the only angles that I could get it to where you could actually see what I'm doing and like my hand wasn't in the way. So but let's pay attention to like the actual pencil. So here, as you can see, I'm not pressing very hard with my pencil, because you do not want to press hard when working with colored pencil, because it is incredibly hard to erase, sometimes even impossible. So you want to go very lightly in like circles, never harsh marks. And you never want to hold it too close to the front. As you can see there, my hand was just kind of like in the middle of the pencil, or like kind of towards the back a little. That is the best way to hold it if you want to be very subtle with it and just kind of build the colors on top of each other. If you do need it, when it comes to the time where you do need to press a little bit harder with the pencil, that's where you want to move your hand much closer to the front of it, just like there, because that will give you the most control so that you don't like mess up and go in some area that you don't want to be in. For new artists especially, I feel like this is where I would kind of get stressed out when I was first starting, because I was like, this looks bad, this isn't going to turn out how I want it to. But this is where the trust the process really comes in, because as you can see, like right now, it obviously doesn't look like the picture. This is where the building the color starts, because right now you can see there's little white marks in between all the colors, but as we keep going in like light circles over and over and over again, the color will start building, and eventually those little white speckles that you can see will go away. And once it gets to the point where they're still kind of there but not really, is when we're going to start to use harsher marks, but we're not there yet, so I'm just kind of getting ahead of myself. So kind of in his pants, if you can see in the picture there, is when the oranges more start to come up rather than this like kind of burgundy red that you see. So this is where I'm trying to like lightly blend in everything, and I would say this is probably my favorite part, just like kind of blending in the colors of the rainbow. It's just so satisfying. And again, you want to go light because nothing's ever going to blend well if you're doing it harsh. Here I'm kind of just showing you guys like up close with my mini camera just so you can see exactly what I'm doing. This is what I mean by like the little white speckles, as I said before. This is just kind of like a close-up of what I was talking about. I think my other camera ran out of like storage or something, which is why I brought this one close up so you guys could see better. Sorry that it is a little shaky. I was literally holding it with my left hand while recording this. But as you can see here, I'm just kind of going in softly in circles like I've been saying, and eventually keep just doing this over and over again will build the color. I know that it kind of doesn't look like it's doing right now, but again, trust the process. 95% of the time with color matching, you are not going to have a straight match from off of the Prismacolor chart, so you are going to need to blend different colors together. Like for this kind of dark burgundy color that I ended up using, I mixed kind of like a really dark pink along with a dark brown to kind of get that in-between shade of like the burgundy, and once building those colors upon each other, it actually turned out really close to the picture that was on my iPad. And something that took me a long time to understand is that you're never going to be able to get it to look exactly like the picture. And a thing with me is I have OCD, so that is very hard for me to deal with and compromise with. But sometimes it gets to the point where you're like, this is taking way too long, it really doesn't look that bad. If I try to change this itty bitty little detail that really doesn't matter but doesn't look like the picture, if I try to change that, it might end up messing up everything else, which has happened to me multiple times before, and then you just end up kicking yourself because it really didn't matter that much. But so it's never going to get to look exactly like the picture, and you have to understand that that's fine because the end result still looks good. Like when you guys see it at the end, it's still going to look good it's still going to look like the picture on the iPad. But unless you're inspecting the really minuscule little details on there, that is the only time you're going to notice that it doesn't really look like the picture totally. So here I'm starting to shade in empty parts of the paper, which is a good opportunity for you guys to see what I mean again when I'm saying like light in circles like that. It is okay to go like kind of every which way in directions as long as you're going light, because if you do harsh marks like I was saying before and you're going like basically scribbles, that's gonna look terrible. Like that's what we've all done in like elementary school, and this is not an elementary school drawing, okay? When looking at a reference photo for coloring especially, you do want to pay very close attention to make sure that you are coloring in the right spots, because once again, colored pencil is incredibly hard to erase. So if you do mess up and make a harsh mark over a spot that mark was not supposed to be in, it's going to be very frustrating to try and fix, and sometimes you just straight up will not be able to, and you'll have to just improvise from that point forward. So this is the point in the drawing where the colors start to add up a lot. As you can see, there's some parts where it kind of looks like the drawing has a little bit of reflection into it, as you saw before, and that's because finally the colors are starting to build upon each other and just look a lot darker than they were at the beginning. As you can see, if you look at the guitar bass right there, like where the strings are going to be, that is obviously a lot lighter than what his shirt looks like right now and what the end of the guitar looks like. It's also just incredibly satisfying to watch all of these colors build up for real. Now here's where I'm starting to get into more of the orange colors in his physical shirt. Now this part was a little bit tricky just in that specific corner that I'm working in there, I'm pretty sure, because I had gone a little bit too harsh on that like darker maroon color. So having to try and blend that into those oranges was a teensy bit tough, but I didn't go so harsh to the point where it was like impossible and I would like need to erase a bunch. So it ended up being fine, but that is where you want to watch out for going a little bit too harsh. Here is where I'm purposefully going harsh though, because I'm trying to get rid of those little white marks, as you can see. Okay, so here's where I'm about to get into probably my favorite part. As you can see, there's that kind of big white splotch in the guitar right there, and right here is where I'm starting to blend it in with like more orangish colors. And because I went light on that like really dark maroon color that you see, it blended in super smoothly here, and I just thought that process was like the most satisfying thing. Once you have gotten all the colors to blend to a certain point, you want to blend everything in with probably the lightest color. So like in that section of the guitar that I just did, if I wanted to finalize everything by blending all the colors together, I would go in with the lightest orange that I used for that. And for that portion, you aren't going to want to do it super harsh once again. You're kind of going to do like the circles again, the light circles, until you get that like fully blended effect that is going to be the end result. Now I'm getting started on the other half of the guitar with the itty bitty details, and this part was actually definitely my least favorite. I don't understand why it took so long, but I feel like blending those colors, just because there were so many in such a small space, and also those little details in the guitar with like those little circles, I have no idea what they're called, but those were a pain also. But here I finally figured out to zoom out my darn camera so you can actually see what I'm doing on the pants. But pretty much I'm just blending in all the colors. I kind of built it up at the beginning with like those light circles that I've been talking about for like the past 10 minutes. And then I would just keep building on those. And again, the rainbow, just like blending in the colors of the rainbow is so satisfying because you just know that they're going to blend well. Also, I don't remember if I've said this or not, but you're always going to want to start with light colors first, especially in something like, if you look on my iPad at the picture of his pant legs, you can tell that there definitely are some darker colors in there, like the maroons or like the dark oranges, but you're always going to want to start with the yellow colors, also because if you look closely, you can see that there are bigger portions of the yellow colors, and I find that in like rectangles and just kind of big shapes like that, it's a lot easier to do those first if they are lighter colors, especially because then you kind of just automatically get the proportions right. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but like whenever I'm freehanding, not like proportions as in like the outline of his body, but just like simple shapes within the body, those have always been a lot easier for me to freehand. So by getting those out of the way first with the lighter colors, then I find that it's a lot easier to incorporate the dark colors, especially because there are kind of those triangular shapes with that dark maroon color. And so once I already got through the giant rectangular shapes of the yellow color, then it kind of already laid out a good placement for where those darker spots needed to be. And back to the point of just starting with lighter colors in general, it's kind of just common sense that if you lay down a dark color, you're not going to be able to see a light color above it if you put a light color on top of it, especially if you're making harsh marks at first. So by using the lighter colors and then building upon that, it's going to add a really nice gradient effect and just blend everything in a lot more seamlessly than how it would if you started with the dark colors, which just simply wouldn't work. In that little line that you can see, the straight like maroon one, I did go harsher on that just because it's literally a wire and it's just like one solid color pretty much. So in stuff like that that's pretty thin and genuinely a solid color, it doesn't matter if you go harsh on those, as long as you're staying in between the lines, because if you're like scribbling everywhere, then that's just not gonna look good. But here I'm starting to kind of just like blend in all those colors together in the pants, especially with those darker orange colors, because blending in like the reds and the yellows, obviously the middle ground is orange because of like the colors of the rainbow. It also just like works really well together. And again, most satisfying part for me personally. Also, I know I'm talking a lot about like technique and just straight up what I'm doing as if you're not already seeing it for yourself. In my other video where I drew the Sturniolo triplets, I did go off on more tangents and kind of just like talking about whatever. So if you want to watch that and then compare it to this video and see which one you like more of like my style of talking, please let me know, because somebody actually yelled at me in the comments in my last video because I titled it how to draw the Sturniolo triplets, and I talked about my technique a little bit, but then I went on a bunch of other like art related tangents, and then they yelled at me in the comments, so then I changed the name of the video so that they couldn't yell at me anymore, so it actually made sense. But I had fun in that one, kind of just talking about whatever. But if you guys genuinely want to know like everything that I did step for step, not only is it a little bit hard for me to say that because it's like I pretty much just do the same things over and over with like the light circles and just blending in the colors and starting with the lighter colors first and working up to the darker colors. Like that's pretty much the basic of like every single colored pencil drawing ever. So if I'm just going to be like repeating that over and over and over again, not only is it going to get boring for you, but personally I would click out of that video. Not me literally telling you to exit my video because it's boring. Also, especially when I'm drawing, I always listen to like a movie or like some documentary or a podcast in the background, just because I feel like I'm being like double productive, if that makes sense. Like, I can never just be sitting down and watch a movie in peace and silence if I'm not also doing something that I feel like is going to, I don't know, help me in life and somehow. Like, usually when I'm watching, like, I'm drawing, as I'm doing literally right now. Like, those two things always pair together for me, or else I feel like I'm a failure. Also, I'm completely aware I sound like those teenage boys on TikTok who like wake up in the morning and make their voice like 10 octaves lower just to sound cool, but I'm genuinely not trying to be that guy. I had nose surgery the other day because I legit haven't been able to breathe out of my nose for like a year, so they had to open my nostrils up, but they also took something out of the back of my throat. It wasn't my tonsils, it was like some other name, the adenoids I think it's called, and so I wasn't expecting them to do that, but they did it, and so now my throat hurts and I can't really yell or anything, so I'm kind of stuck with this like middle-aged man morning voice. But anyways, back to the literal point of this video. I like how I was like, oh my gosh, people hated it when I went on a tangent, and then I just proceed to go on like a 5-minute tangent. Anyways, back to the actual point once again. Here I'm just trying to kind of get in like the lighter colors. That's actually in his shirt and everything. I haven't finished the pants, but I've got all the basic shapes there that I needed. There are going to be some other points where I need to add like some very smaller, darker details, but that doesn't come till the very end because I don't want to stress myself out mid drawing. Also, I don't know how other people draw, but personally I do not work in sections really. I work with colors. So let's say I'm like working with like the darker color first, I'll just kind of go I just completely contradicted myself there. Wow. Anyways, if it's like a large portion of darkness, that is fine to start with. Like in the top left corner of his shirt there, you can see I literally started there because that was just like a big blob of darkness, and as long as I did not go super harsh around the edges so that I could still blend other colors, that's totally fine. So I feel like I always start with like the bigger blobs of color first, and in that case this was the darker one. Then I'll work my way to whatever is the next largest portion of color, and then I'll just end up working my way into blending everything together. Also, even though I technically got all of the proportions right with like his body, I have always hated drawing fingers. They just always look like sausages, like no matter what you do. Like, as you can see there, where he's like strumming the guitar strings, they literally look like little orange uncooked sausages, and it's so annoying. The shadows are gonna eventually make that look normal and like totally fine, but just starting out, or like when it comes to the point where you're forcing yourself to trust the process, just looking at those just sets you back a step. You're just like, well, now what the heck is that? Also, I literally haven't even said why I'm drawing this entire thing. So basically, last week I went to a Dominic Fike concert, and I'm like voice recording this like probably, yeah, like the week after I already went to the concert and everything, because I was working on this to bring to the concert, because when it comes to like me going to smaller venues for like concerts and things, I know that Dominic Fike has like millions of followers, but I still feel like not enough people know about him to where he's like in a stadium, you know? Like, I would never draw something for like a stadium concert because that's like halfway impossible to get it to them. So I've drawn pictures of Lizzie McAlpine and of Alec Benjamin, if you know who they are, because they had smaller venues, and I was able to get both of those drawings to them. So I wanted to draw one for Dominic Fike and try and get it to him, and I'm not going to spoil anything because I want you guys to go watch the vlog that's going to be coming out of that concert next week. But pretty much I spent like this entire drawing took me 10 hours. I'm just going to say I know that because I filmed everything and it came out to around 10 hours. But pretty much, yeah, the whole point I drew this was to get it to him at the concert, and I literally finished this the day before we went to the concert. And I always go with the same friend who I've been to. I went to the Alec Benjamin concert with her, and we both got to meet him because of that drawing. And pretty much what we do is we'll drive to the venue, which is always like 3 hours away from us, and then her mom will drive us back at like 5 in the morning. Like, we'll get home to her house at like 5 a.m., which is funny because we did that last week and then we did that the week before because we went to a Youngblood concert. If you want to go watch that video, you guys can go check that out because that was probably one of the coolest concert experiences of my life. We met him like 3 times that night, so I think you guys should go watch that because that was incredibly fun to just be a part of and film. Also, if any of you know who Avani Gregg is, she was there. We didn't meet her because I didn't want to bother her, and I was low-key kind of like terrified of famous people, but she was there, and it was really weird to like see somebody that's like internet famous in real life. Also, the fact that she has more followers than Youngblood and it was literally his concert, I thought that was kind of funny. But anyways, back to the actual drawing once again. Here I'm starting to make harsher marks and kind of blend everything a little bit harder than I was before, simply because I've already built it up to that point where all the colors are blending together pretty well already, and there's not that many little like white speckles left in the areas that I'm doing it in, just because of how the lighting is, or because the window is like directly facing my drawing. I know it looks absolutely terrible right now, but when you guys see the end result, I promise it's not gonna look that greasy and iridescent. You know, with this drawing, I was actually really surprised that it only took me 10 hours, because most of the time, color drawings are the ones that take the longest, but I feel like the reason it didn't take me over 10 hours was because there wasn't a lot of detail in places that there usually would be detail in if it was like normal lighting. Like in his face, I couldn't see his eyes, I couldn't really see his nose or his mouth or anything, so that is like probably the part that takes the longest in like color drawings usually. But since it was just like one giant black shadow, it was really easy to just like breeze through that, so I didn't have to worry about that part. But in like other drawings that I've done, and I'll probably make a video soon about like me going through all of the drawings that I've had and like my progress throughout the years, because I only started realistic drawing in 2020, and I've had like my work in an art museum, and I've won like a bunch of competitions from my art since then. So I think that would be a cool video, just kind of showing you guys how I started and like where I am now, but that's like getting ahead of myself. Anyways, but like if you're not working on colored drawings like consistently hours on end at a time, it's gonna take you a lot longer. Like I've had projects specifically for art class where I had to draw a picture of like this freckled girl. That probably, I can't even tell you how long that took me, probably like a couple weeks, but only simply because I had to like legitimately be in school. Like me just being at school takes away like so much time, especially in high school. Like, okay, I'm not gonna get into that because then I'm just gonna go on a big tangent and how much of a waste of time senior year was. But pretty much just for that specific project, because I was in school and I had to go to other classes obviously and pay attention in those classes, I couldn't just focus all my time on drawing, and then obviously when I got home I had like other things to do, so it was really like scattered periods of time where I would be working on that, which is why it took me so long. That one definitely took me over 10 hours, but because this drawing of Dominic that I'm doing I did in the middle of summer where I literally had no requirements, I kind of just got it done in like I'd say 4 days of spending a few hours at a time on it each day. Also, now that I've turned on the overhead light, rather than you just seeing how my drawing looks from straight window lighting, you can see it actually doesn't look that terrible. I just need a better lighting situation. But anyways, here I'm pretty far into this drawing, I would say. I mean, things are starting to get like really blended together and look a lot darker than they were. Here I'm having to work on his freaking sausage fingers, which I hate. Oh my gosh, the loathe I have for drawing fingers is actually terrible. But, you know, I'm just lucky that the fingers don't have a lot of detail, because since it's like such a weirdly lit photo that I'm working off of. Okay, now I'm starting to add in those little rectangular grooves that are on like all guitars. This part was a little bit tricky because you could barely tell that they were there because of the way that the photo was like lit. So I still had to use like dark colors. I had to make the rectangles really dark so that you could like see them, but still not so dark that they completely stood out, because they were still a little bit blended into the lighting in the photo. Also, the reason that I left that little section blank for so long, like where his hand is holding it that I'm drawing right now, is because that one I was like pretty much having to completely freehand, because occasionally whenever you are projecting something onto a wall that you're like gonna trace, not like, it's a little bit hard to see because you have to do it in like a dark room and everything. So that part I pretty much had to freehand of him, just like how he's holding the guitar there, and I wanted to do that last because again, sausage fingers freak me out. Speaking of sausage fingers, we're back at it again with the little orange uncooked, Ugh. No, because how embarrassing would it be if Dominic Fike sees this and it's just me complaining about the fact that I'm having to draw his fingers the whole time? That's so embarrassing. A similar thing happened whenever I drew the Sterniolo triplets. I was pretty much just complaining about drawing a part of Nick Sterniolo's face. Which, like, nothing wrong with his face. Like, they're beautiful. But yeah, like, drawing pretty people sometimes can be a pain. Speaking of pretty people, this is where I go off on another tangent, but I think it's funny, so I'm going to say it. When I woke up out of like anesthesia from my surgery the other day, I was under anesthesia. Don't remember anything that I was saying, okay? And I was in the car with my mom, and I was like, I don't even remember being all that loopy. And she goes, "You did tell me that hot people make your nose clog up." And I was like, "No, I did not." Because I literally used to say this all the time, especially whenever my nose straight up just wasn't working. Because like I would see, like, let's say I'm like on TikTok and I saw like an edit of somebody that was like really pretty. I don't know why. I do not know why, but my nose would literally clog up and I would immediately need a tissue. And I always just thought it was really funny, so I would like go around telling my friends, but then I freaking told my mom, bro. I told her not to tell me anything else that I said because I do not want to know what other ungodly secrets I just unleashed. Okay, but finally I'm getting into like the microphone portion of this drawing, and his microphone made me so mad. Literally, I copied it exactly whenever I projected it, right? It still ended up looking wonky and messed up. I really don't know why, but like even the stand ended up looking all tilted and weird, and I had to fix it with a ruler like way before. But yeah, so if you're looking at the microphone and being like, why does it low-key look kind of bent? That's why. But you know what? If you look at it from a distance, it's fine, and we're not going to talk about it so that my feelings don't get hurt. And now we're finally working on his face, which I wasn't as scared for his face as I was his hair, because even though it's like one of those photos where like there's just large shadows of color everywhere, his hair was not like that. His hair had like every color shadow that there was. But in the photo I was referencing off of my iPad, he had these like kind of larger circular shadows in his hair, so I tried to draw those in place the best that I could. So after like adding in those like kind of blobby shadows in his hair, also you can literally see a bug crawling on my paper. What the heck? Ew. Anyways, ignoring that, after adding the like dark blobs in his hair, I started going in with like the yellow color, since that's like the next lightest color, and then eventually like blending all those together. But also in his face, going in with like the lighter colors and everything. There were some like weird shapes that I had to work past, like his it's not really his eyebrow, but it's like a shadow of orange where his eyebrow would be. Like I kept changing up that shape because it just never seemed to look right. Then getting into the hair and adding in like the oranges and the yellows and kind of blending those together, and like sharpening the pencil as much as I could to get like the thinnest lines possible so I could actually make what looks like to be realistic curls. Also, not only in colored pencil, but in regular like lead pencil too, hair is just like a really complicated thing to draw for no reason. Like I'm sure it gets easier with time, but like personally, it always takes me a little while to draw hair, and I've gotten a lot better at it thanks to my art teacher, because there's like a trick to it with an eraser. That trick is mainly for lead pencils because once again you can't really erase colored pencils. Whenever I make a drawing video with that involves hair and just lead pencil, I will explain that little trick because right now this is not the time. But drawing his hair here was actually really fun because I've never drawn like really colorful hair before. I know his hair is like genuinely just brown and not colorful at all, but because of the lighting, like it made this like a really enjoyable drawing to make. I've also never done a drawing like this at all where it's just like solid colors all the way through. Like I always, if I'm drawing somebody, it's always like in natural lighting and it's just like, the way they naturally look every day. But because this had such cool lighting, like I was able to do something completely different and like out of my comfort zone, which was actually really fun, and I'm super glad with how it ended up turning out. But here I'm just pretty much adding the final touches. The drawing's almost done. Here is where I'm kind of going in with like harsher marks just to fill in all the excess little like white blotches that are left. And here is the finished result. I was not able to film like the very end pieces because it was like so late at night and I just wanted to get it done, and the cameras were like either dying or like their storage was running out, so I really just had to focus on the drawing at the end. But basically the only thing that I added there that you can see is in the hair, I took the lightest color yellow that I had and just kind of added little circles around the top to make it look like the lighting was just getting those little wispy pieces of hair at the top, so that I just added like an extra touch of realism, and plus it would make his hair look curly, which it is. And I always take pictures of the drawings that I do, whether I'm giving it to an artist or not, so that I can have it in my phone in case I ever need to show somebody my drawings. And recently I've been taking up more like close-up shots of them just so that you can see like the detail in it and everything. But I was really happy with how this drawing ended up. Like, again, I've never done something like that, and I think for my first type of drawing like that, I think it turned out really well, and I was just super happy with it. If you guys want to see another type of video like this, I do currently have up a drawing tutorial of me drawing the Stern Yellow triplets, so you should go check that out. That was a really fun video for me to make. Make sure you guys stay tuned for next week because I'm going to actually be posting the vlog of whenever I went to the Dominic Fike concert, and you're going to get to see that whole process of us just like going there, getting home at 5 in the morning, and just all the fun things that come with the concert, because this was also a lot different of a concert experience than I've ever had before, and I think that's a big fun part about going to concerts, since you never know what you're going to expect. Speaking of, if you want to see a video of something I definitely would never have expected, go watch my Youngblood video of me and my friend going to that concert, because once again, craziest experience I've ever had in my life. Like, genuine, we had way too much luck for that day. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you won't miss next week's video or any future ones. And just let me know in the comments what you thought about this video and if there's anything you want to see more of or maybe less of, like my tangents. I personally think those are fun, but you know what? It is up to the viewers. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Bye!